Thanks for downloading Pave the Way Podcast. On this show, your host, Greg Helbeck, interviews the top minds in real estate, business, and personal development to help you crack the code so you can grow your business and, more importantly, grow your life. Get ready for another game-changing episode. If you want to learn how to master your day and become a productivity monster, download Greg's free guide on daily personal productivity for free at www.pavetheday.com. That's Pave the Day, spelled DAY.com. Now it's time for today's episode. Enjoy.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Greg Helbeck, and today I have my buddy Rob Chevez out of the DMV, which is DC, Maryland, Virginia. Is that what that stands for?
That's it, man.
That's right. It. Yeah, Rob's one of my fellow mastermind members in the Multipliers, which is, in my opinion, the best mastermind in the game for high-level entrepreneurs. So I met Rob down in Tulum a couple months ago. That was like 3 or 4 months ago now. Time flies, dude.
It flies. It's crazy.
Crazy, right? Yeah, so we chopped it up down in Tulum. We were able to hang out a bunch. And I was a guest on his show, and I figured he'd be a great guest for our show. So, Rob, I'm really looking forward to kind of getting into your backstory and what you're doing in the real estate business, because you got some great stuff going on there down in the DMV area. So before we get into the real estate stuff, tell me a little bit about your background. Like, what were you like as a kid? How'd you grow up? And we'll kind of get your story.
Yeah, man. So my dad was I was born in Argentina, right?
Okay.
My dad was a diplomat for the U.S., and I don't even remember Argentina. I've seen pictures, like I was there for 6 months.
Yeah.
Then we came to Virginia because that's kind of like home base for everybody. Then I was there for about 6 months. Then we moved to Costa Rica, and I was in Costa Rica for 4 or 5 years. And that's what I start remembering, right? I start remembering Costa Rica.
Yeah.
I love Costa Rica. It's a great place. My little sister was born there. She's a Tica, right? And dude, my dad was a diplomat for the U.S. So I literally every 3-4 years I would, we moved to a different country. I think I attended something like 15 schools by the time I graduated high school. And dude, I loved it. Like, I gotta be honest with you. Like, I really liked it. Like it was the way to reinvent yourself every single time.
Yeah.
I was like, new set of friends, new set of girls, new reinvention, right?
The best.
It was a good time. But I lived in places like Australia, El Salvador, Tijuana, Costa Rica, Texas, California, like a bunch of places. So super blessed, super fortunate to live that. Didn't grow up in an entrepreneur's household, but I had a little bit of that when I was younger in Costa Rica. I remember selling mangoes to the older kids, and then they put the kibosh on it because I was climbing trees 2 stories too high. They put the kibosh, but our household was not an entrepreneur's household. But my parents, to their fortune, would always talk about real estate because we were always moving, right?
Yeah.
We always had to find a house and make that our home. And along the way, they would buy property in these countries and then fix them up. And I got to experience that, like tearing down the wallpaper and painting and stuff like that from an early age. So I think maybe those were some early seeds that were planted.
Yeah.
But then, and wrestled in high school, wrestled D1 in college. And, I think that kind of focused my brain a little bit about, hey, I like competition. I like benchmarking against people. And, that was it, man.
Sounds like the perfect recipe to be an entrepreneur. Competition, measuring yourself, having incentives. Sounds like the route of an entrepreneur to me.
There's a lot of failing forward in wrestling, right? You get your ass kicked and then you got to get back up and figure out like what happened. How do I fix that? What do I do? So, I got lucky. What got me in the business originally was there was a donor to the university that was super wealthy. And he would come in every week and work out. And he was around my weight class.
Yeah. And
I was like, who is this older guy that's like just a total stud? And I came to find out that he was a super successful business owner, hundreds of millions of dollars, like type of guy. And he took me under his wing and he gave me a job while I was in college and essentially put me in his accounting department, which I totally sucked at, but I just wanted exposure. I had my accounting teacher actually paired me up with him. And when I graduated from college, he said, what are you going to do with your life? I was like, I'm going to go start a business. Right. He was like, well, what are you going to do right now And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, come work for me. And then I worked for him in sales on the he owned an insurance business. And I worked for him for about a year. So a year and a half in college, a year out of college. And then my best friend and I started he really started it, showed me that he could make money in it. But we started a recruiting business out of his bedroom, placing tech salespeople in the late 90s, like 1998, right before the dot-com, as the dot-com boom was occurring.
Yeah.
Right?
The internet was starting to become a real thing. People didn't think it was created by Al Gore or some crazy
Yeah,
shit.
yeah, that's right. It was like, Petopia or something, right?
Yeah. It's like, what
Petco.com.
the hell? Yeah.
And so anyhow, we were making a lot of money at a really young age.
Yeah.
And I just happened to read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, like so many people, right? And that book took me down a journey of buying real estate investments for passive income.
Yeah.
And then I got punched in the face, man. Got punched in the face. The dot-com boom turned to bust, right? Which was a difficult time. Went from making, high six figures to like very little money, right? In that business. In 2002, right? 9/11 happened. 2002 was like somebody turned off the spigot. But what kept me alive, man, was if I needed a little bit of money. And by the way, my daughter was born 2002. So you got to picture this. I just got done buying a single family house. I just got done during that time, it seemed like a lot of money. Now I look back, I'm like, it wasn't that much money, but interest rates were completely different, right? Interest rates were like 6.5. My little girl was just born. My wife wasn't working, and I went from making, high six-figure salary to like literally like very little money. My income got cut by like, 75%.
Holy dude, that is scary when you got kids. I would be freaking out, dude.
Yeah, I was, and I wasn't necessarily. I think back and I was like, I was just going to figure out a way, right?
Yeah.
To make it work. But if we needed a little bit of money, and I would sell a house that I'd purchased along the way.
Yeah.
And remember, during that time, it was like no income, no doc. So if you had good credit and you had money for a down payment, you could just buy a townhouse, and the real estate market was running up, kind of like how it's running up a little bit right now. Right? It was running up.
Yeah.
And so if I needed, some money, I would sell a house and I'd put that in my pocket. And so we weathered that storm, and that business got back on track. But by 2005, I was done with it, right? I was like in love with real estate. And I asked my business partner to buy me out so I could pursue real estate full time.
So you got right into it. You jumped right into the game, out of the recruiting business into the real estate business, full time, full willy-nilly, going at it.
Yeah, no plan, no system, no mentor, no anything.
Oh yeah, the good way.
No clue.
Oh,
no clue.
Gosh.
Literally, I don't recommend it for everybody. It was like just like a gut feeling. I said, I don't belong in this seat anymore recruiting.
Yeah.
I feel like my life is on the side of real estate. And I just approached my wife one day and I said, I think I want to buy apartment buildings. That was it. I want to go buy apartment buildings.
Yeah.
And the motivation was this: in the world of recruiting, you start very much like being an agent, right? Or a wholesaler, or even a rehabber. I mean, for the most part, you're starting every month at zero.
Yeah, that's the problem with freaking flipping, dude, that I realized after 5 years and doing a lot of deals. It's the same shit. You can make 200 G's one month, and the next month you're like, fuck, I got to put that damn mail back out, Yeah.
And
crazy.
So what happens is you realize that that's just all earned income, right? Whether you're a flipper, you're in construction, you're an agent, you're a wholesaler, it's all the same. And the whole idea is to take that cash and buy assets that will pay you long term.
Yes.
And so that light bulb went off, right? For me, 2 or 3 years into it, as I was flipping houses, right?
Like taking projects down, renovating and dumping them retail, and then exiting.
Yeah, and what we were doing was we realized that the market where we were in Northern Virginia, everything seemed completely inflated.
Oh, it's so expensive down there. Yeah.
But there was a little town a couple hours away from where we were that hadn't experienced the same boom. Yeah. And it was more of a cash flow type of area. At least on paper, it looked like a cash flow area. kind of a depressed little area. And what we would do is we'd go in, send thousands of letters. People would call me. I'd negotiate deals. And that's really where I cut my teeth, man. Buying like $50,000 duplexes.
Oh yeah. The good old.
Yeah. And doing that. And then what happened was I learned how to negotiate at the table. I learned how to raise capital. I learned how to renovate properties. And then I would sell these assets, typically duplexes, triplexes, quads, to other investors turnkey. And then they would turn around and say, well, this is great, but who's going to manage it for us? And I'm like, well, we don't want to manage it. We live 2 hours away.
Yeah.
I'm like, listen, the only way we're going to do this is if you manage it. So my wife decided, well, we manage our own assets, right? We already had a number of assets. How much harder could it be, right?
Oh, sure.
I know. And so before we knew it, man, in a year and a half, we had 300 assets under management. I know. And
300 human being tenants with eyes and ears.
Yes. And my wife ran that side of the business. And the way I look, I mean, there's so many learning lessons. Let me tell you, I'll give you some of the nuggets. But, remember, we're 2 hours away from where we lived. So we had the run of office. There was, physically property management. You got to be there.
Yeah, boots on the ground.
Find somebody, had to find people there, run that office. This is low income, average rent's $500, $550, 10% is only $50 a door. I mean, we didn't put it through a pro forma, dude. It was like a nightmare, but we were just getting our reps in, our reps in, right? And and the way I saw it was almost like it was a loss leader. Like it helped me dispose of the asset because we'd be like, hey, I'd sell it, I'd make money when I sold the asset, and then we would manage it. And we were hoping that we would make a little bit of money on the management side.
Yeah.
And so that's how we started, man. Making every mistake under the sun, but there's no better way to learn.
That's how you really get the experience. And I'm glad you made that point because everyone wants like the secret code they can read in a book. And I read a lot of books. I'm sure you do too. I see your shelf behind you and you see mine, but it's like, that's like, you're going to learn some stuff in a book, but when you're actually doing the damn work, that's where you're going to really, it's like your brain like your group, like you really can connect the dots when you're actually doing it. And then the thing you learn in the book will just help you a little bit, it's better than watching TV in my opinion.
100%. It's like, you don't fully get it until you're in it, right?
Exactly. So you're doing that. So you made a shift eventually. So the reason I think this is this is definitely a great interview because you're a great guy, but your business model is very different. The way that the sequence of events in your career so far is different than a lot of the other guests we've had on because they start as an agent or something like that. And they become investors after that, so you actually did the opposite. You started as an investor and then you became an agent after that. So what was the reason behind that? Because it's a smart strategy. And you made a good point before we hit record on like a lot of times you can make more money in commissions with less, BS than wholesaling. Because I've done a lot of wholesale deals and they get crazy.
Yeah. Well, what happened was I realized that, remember this town is 2 hours away from where we live, right? This was 2008 now. And everything in our backyard at this point, remember I left this market in 2005 saying everything is overpriced. And I cut my teeth in this town from 2005 to 2008. And then in 2008, I looked up and everything in our backyard was on sale, right? Assets that were valued at like $350 were now $150. And so that transition period started happening for me when I came back to the Nova area. Yeah. And I picked up a number of assets with a business partner. Remember, nobody was giving a recently self-employed guy, real estate guy, money in 2008 as Lehman Brothers is going bankrupt, right? Yeah. But I developed all this muscle of being able to buy an asset, fix an asset, put tenants into an asset. And I happened to have a friend that had some cash, and I just happened to mention to him, hey man, these things peaked at like $350. That you can pick them up at like $150. The rents are $1,500 a month. It's a 1% rule. Haven't seen this in this market ever. I'm looking in the MLS, and so what would happen is I'd gotten my license a year earlier purely to just get like referral fees. I would send out thousands of letters. People would call me. I'd get all these retail leads. Couldn't do anything with them. I'd refer them to an agent. The agent would say, I'd say, hey, can I get a referral fee? They're like, no, not unless you're technically licensed. So that's what prompted me to get the license, right? So in 2008, now I've got my license. this market, every house is a foreclosure. So I'm just entering in as an agent, looking at them, acquiring them for ourselves. But then I got the idea of, like, I'm like, I can't take all these down myself. And I started organizing foreclosure bus tours, right? I was running an investment group, a little investment group in my backyard at the time. And I said, listen, if you want to see what it's like to walk through a foreclosed house, show you how I'm buying these houses, showing you what the numbers look like, join me on this day at this time. And I'd pack a bus with like 30 people, right? And we would
school bus or a coach bus?
No, like a school bus, like a coach bus. But I mean,
I know what you're saying.
I mean, it was big, right?
Yeah.
And then we would go by these houses, and I would give people an education and be like, hey, this is why I like this one. This is what it looks like. This is what the renovation would cost. And I started building a network, and people just started saying, hey, can you help me buy something? Can you help me sell something? Right.
Yeah.
And I remember a friend of mine who was a developer at the time. Remember this 2008.
Yeah.
He's selling a luxury home in Arlington, Virginia, which you and I were just
high end,
trying to sell it for like 1.7, somewhere around there.
Holy
the
cow.
market, his agents weren't getting it done. The market was sliding at the time, right?
Yeah.
He was about to start losing money on this project. And he said, hey, I know you got your license. Maybe you can help me, or maybe you can refer me to somebody that can help me.
Yeah.
I'm about to start losing big money on this project. I looked at it, I analyzed the deal, and I'm like, man, you got to get out now. The market is shifting downwards.
Yeah.
This is where I think it needs to be. I think I said like $1.6 million or $1.65 million. Got a contract in like 20 days, went to settlement. And I remember I walked away from the table with like a big check, right?
Yeah, like a wholesale check, like the guru check.
And I was like, wait a second, right? I got to work with a friend on a product that I really liked because it was a nice luxury deal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I took no risk. Right?
No risk at all until it
risk.
sells. No freaking equitable interest or any BS, man.
No risk, right? And I was like, I need to do more of this, right?
Yeah.
And around that time, I started realizing that, listen, you got into this game anyways to build passive income, and all you're doing is buying these really good assets, and then you're selling these really good assets for cash. You're killing the golden goose. What are you doing, man? Like, you're like, by God, this is not why you got into this business. You got into this business, buy assets, right? And getting my license gave me permission to be able to sell it and a real estate asset and not feel guilty about it.
Dude, I love that. And it's way more scalable because there's less capital required on the because
especially
flipping,
on the reno side, because I was renovating everything, right?
Oh, yeah. Flipping is crazy. You have to, the thing I've noticed with flipping is like, it's so risky. If you really like look at flipping, like from a legitimate perspective, it's like the only way you can make your 50, 60 grand is if you invest like a shitload of money. And then that's where your revenue comes from. It's like, oh, if there's a profit with a brokerage business, it seems from my perspective to scale a lot better because it's a service-based business versus a capital intensive, risk reward business. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? That's like my perspective.
You could turn it off or turn it off, turn it on, turn it off very quickly, right? Like, just like a wholesaling business, right? You could say, hey, I don't want to spend any money marketing, right?
Totally.
But when you're renovating a house, you're stuck in projects.
Oh, you're jammed up.
You got to finish the project. So if you've got a lot of projects going on at once, I've seen a lot of people, and the market starts sliding 5%, 10%, you're carrying a lot of product, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble, right? You start compounding that. And what happens also with renovating a lot of houses at the same time, unless you're a real good operator from a project management standpoint, you start becoming really inefficient. You're not getting those projects done quickly.
Yeah.
Right? You haven't understood. You don't understand how to like efficiently do it. Right.
Yes.
I mean, you can build yourself into it, but you're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way. Right. And that's why you've seen a lot of major players in our area that they've gone from rehabbing houses, 100, 200 rehab houses here to saying, you know what, screw that. We're just going to be wholesalers and we're going to stop renovating and we're just going to do the wholesale business, right? Because they understood, the trailing liability also is a lot less, right?
What do you mean by trailing liability?
Well, when you renovate a house and you sell it to a consumer,
right?
If God forbid you didn't do things right, if you didn't pull permits right, like trailing liability associated with that renovation that you did, right? People come back to you after the fact and said, you didn't disclose this, I didn't know about this, you didn't pull the permit for this. And I've seen a lot of investors get not screwed. They did the wrong thing and they got whacked for doing the wrong.
After the
thing.
fact, after the money was in the bank. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
that's so true.
and then I had to take a self-assessment of my own personality. And I was like, I'm more of I don't like taking a lot of risk. Right. I felt like renovating and doing more development work was taking a lot of risk. Remember, my baby girl's, she's little, and I'm like, I totally get the fee for service thing, right? I sell a house, I make cap money comes from the bank. And ultimately my model became like, I sell a house and we're going to buy with the money that's left over after paying our bills and everything, we're going to use that to buy real estate assets. And that became our model, right? And that's the model I teach agents, and that's the model I teach, what I call the agent investor. And because, dude, we're in the same business. If you're a wholesaler and I'm a listing agent, right? We're in the same business.
Same thing.
We're just targeting two different avatars. That's
totally.
It. Right.
Totally. It's so true. And it's the same intention. Thing. Transactional real estate is transactional real estate.
It's transactional real estate. It's just different audience, right?
Totally.
So once you're clear on that, then I had to make a decision. And this is interesting. Who did I want to be in the world of real estate? Like I was like, do I want to be viewed as the investor? Like I remember sitting down, this was a decade ago. Now back in my area, right? Or do I want to be viewed as the broker who understands investments, right? And I could sell luxury development and I have contacts in that world. Yeah. And because I owned a recruiting business before, remember I had all this network of guys that were really successful in sales, right? And I'm like, I can leverage that network in order to do a lot of brokerage business, right? And so I just ultimately said, I'm an investor at heart. And what I'm really doing is I'm building a business as an agent, and I look at it as a business so that I can generate cash, so I can buy investments, right?
Smart. It's super smart. And that's a lot of people, they're so stuck on being a fix and flipper or a wholesaler. And that's what I do. I mean, that's my career, and it's great. I got rentals and all that stuff, but the brokerage business, I mean, there's a lot of guys in multipliers, Hatch, Jeff Cohn, all these guys, what's his name? Mr. Chris Craddock. I mean, they have you guys have these huge brokerages, and they're super successul. Chris Arnold has a brokerage down in Dallas. So it's like, that is a very viable model. And I see a lot of benefits to that.
Let me tell you another benefit, right?
Sure.
When you control the listing and when you control that market, right?
Yeah.
Remember those signs in the yard generate more leads, more buyer opportunities.
Yeah, for sure.
And typically the agent is the referrer to the title company, to the lender, right? So what ultimately happens is you start being able to build an integrated real estate business where you have the ability to say, okay, now I'm gonna add a title company. I'm gonna add a mortgage company. I'm going to add a construction arm because you are top of the funnel.
Yeah, you're controlling everything. You're bringing all the business in, so you can line those pillars. Oh, that's such a.
You can line those pillars up. So now what happens? You could start opening these other divisions or offices that are led by leaders and create opportunity because you're. As an agent, you're top of the funnel, right? People are going to be like, who do you know that can, who should I use for a title company? Who should I use for insurance? Who should I use for? And you see investors do it too. I know investors will own a title company and they'll pass all their business to the title company, right? But this is different. This is, if I have an agent, if I have a team of 25 or 100 agents and I'm telling them, hey, direct it all towards this title business. I mean, by law, you have to disclose that.
Yeah.
But you create a whole nother revenue stream, right?
100%.
That comes out of it.
100%. And it's not like you're going from real estate investing to, managing hedge fund money. It's a similar niche. It's not like you're reinventing the wheel. It's like you own the mortgage company and you own the brokerage business, and they're two parts of the same. It's like 2 + 2 = 4. It's the same equation.
Yeah, and what I believe in partnerships, right? So I don't want to own that. I want to have an equity stake in that business, but I want somebody else to run it.
You want the who?
Yeah,
totally.
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't want to be caught up in all that stuff. That's so smart, man. That's so smart. So we have a lot of people listening right now. They're in the flipping business. There are probably some agents listening for sure with our audience. So my question for you is, and I really like bringing a lot of successful, brokers on the show who have big companies. Like, if there's a real estate agent listening to this and they want to go from having a job to really being a legitimate self-employed person making minimum 6 figures a year, if we have to boil it down to the 80-20 and the 20% of things that they need to do to consistently earn money and build their wealth, what would you say those 20% of things are? Because I'm sure you got a big team, so you know this inside and out.
Yeah. It's you simplify it, right? It's
I love it.
real basic. There's only 3 ways to do this, right? It's you prospect, you network, and you market. You start with prospecting first because it doesn't cost you any money.
No,
right?
it's free.
And then from there you're networking, and then once you make a little bit of money, you market, right? But for me, I teach everybody just this really basic 10 and 2 concept, right? I want to be able to talk to 10 people a day and add 2 people to my database a day. And if I'm doing 10 and 2, right, just a basic, and it's a minimum number, right? A 10 and 2, right? I know that for every 50 conversations that I have, every 25 conversations that I have, I'm booking an appointment, right?
Yeah,
for every 12,
for sure.
Right. And so if I know that, then I'm just like, okay, your only job, agent, right, is to have 10 conversations a day and put 2 people in your database.
Totally.
And over time, those conversations compound. And over time, those 2 people in your database compound, right? And before you know it, you've got this database full of people that abundantly refer you, right? If you're marketing to them properly. And those conversations compound over time and business just comes, right?
100%.
So it's not more complicated than that, right? But everybody wants to complicate. They get stuck on all the other stuff like, what colors should I have? Or what does my business card look like? Or what's my website look like? And then what I teach past that is like, get noisy, right? And do things that a 10 and 2 is a 1-to-1 type of relationship, right? Belly to belly. Yeah. But eventually you start understanding this concept of 1-to-many, right?
Yeah.
So 1-to-many is podcasting, it's creating video, it's like it's hosting seminars and events.
Speaking at an event. Yeah.
That's right. And that's 1-to-many. And so eventually I started learning, if I need to talk to 50 people a week, right? What if I hosted a seminar once a week, once a month, and I brought in 50 people? And that's when I started developing, what I was telling you about Grid, right? Grid Investor. And I realized that, I could host one of these every single month, and I could bring in 50 people, 100 people into my room, and we're going to talk shop about real estate because I love real estate, right?
Yeah.
And that just contributed to my 10 and 2 number, right? I was like, shit, I talked to 50 people tonight.
Yeah, right. You're killing 2 birds with 1 stone at the end of the day, and it's easier, It's
easier.
That's awesome. And that's such a practical tip because everyone looks for like this easy button. It's like, if you just simplify it and do the work every day consistently. There's a book I love, Rob. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's called Do the Work by Stephen Pressfield. It's so direct.
I love it.
And it's just about doing the damn work. It's like, it's 70 pages and it's just like super practical. But if you do the work every day, you will get results over time, which is awesome. So,
or The Slight Edge.
Oh, right? Great book. Oh yeah, that book, Compound Effect. Those little, like, what is it saying? Small hinges swing big doors. It's like, if you just freaking do the damn work every day over 6 months, you're gonna make some money. It's like a mathematical probability. You know what I mean?
It's just math. It's
just math, dude. It's like
we all hated math when we were, or at least I did when we were younger, and now I'm like, I love math.
I love Google spreadsheets, dude. That's amazing. So I want to make sure we cover, Grid Investor towards the end of our show today. I want to spend some time on that. But before we get to that, Rob, I want to make sure, I'm respecting your time. Before we get into the Grid Investor, can you tell us a little bit about, your rental strategy? Because I know you begin with the end in mind. You want to be a real estate buyer, not necessarily a flipper. So what do you do on the rental side right now? Because people love rental properties, man. Because it is true. I get checks from tenants every month, and freaking, I didn't have to do anything. They just paid me because I own something that's valuable.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I think people learn best through mistakes. Right?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what I've done wrong.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what I did wrong initially was I sold stuff because I needed the cash. Right?
Yeah.
And so as I've interviewed people throughout the years, as I've reflected on my life, every time I look back, I regret the assets that I've sold along the way.
Yeah, everyone says that, man.
Yeah, and because what happens is you just realize, man, that asset that I thought was expensive back in the day at $220 is worth now $500, right? And
Totally.
it's just like that, right? It's just this 4.5% steady eddy, long-term appreciation. Let inflation take care of it. Your tenant pays down the asset over time. Like it's a beautiful thing, right?
Totally.
But it's not a get rich quick. It's like you will wake up, my friend. You're 25, right? That's what it is. 25. You will wake up, and 10 years would have gone by like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Fast.
You've got to be buying as much as you possibly can right now. And so what I look for is just, I want to get at least a 15% cash on cash return on my money, right? That's what I want. And if I can make those numbers, like if I can actually like break even on these products, like even just make a little bit of positive cash flow, right? In growth areas, in growing where growth is going, like because I've owned assets in markets that on paper look really good, right?
Yep. I know exactly what you're saying.
Okay, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but in
for
reality, tenant turnover is bad. Like it's just like, but at the end of the year,
I call that a spreadsheet orgy.
Yeah, dude, it looks great on paper.
Yeah,
it looks great on paper
until you fucking buy it.
Until you buy it, you realize, hey, I never understood. I'll tell you right now, Greg. I never understood why people would just shut a building down. And now I own a building, right? I own a triplex that I'm just shutting down, right? I'm shutting down because it's like, it costs me more to operate this building than it does to like pay on the debt, right? So I learned a couple of things. One, some of these towns in America, are dying, right?
Yes.
And being a landlord in them is not the best strategy. Owner financing, is a good strategy in some of those markets, right? Yes. But being the landlord is not, right? No. And so, I learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
And so what I look for is, can I make some money at the end of the month, right? And can I get a 15% cash on cash return on my money? And I got to be honest with you, one of the other mistakes I made was in 2010, you're going to laugh at this. 2011, 2012, I thought everything was overpriced because I bought at such a low number, dude. Remember, I was buying at pennies on the dollar in 2008 that by 2012, I was like, why would I buy that? That's right. Why would I buy that asset for 200 when I bought it for $120 just a couple of years ago, right? But the number still made sense, right? The number, the rent, the purchase ratio still made sense because of where interest rates were, right? Interest rates are a big factor in that.
100%.
And so for a period of, I think I missed a window of about 7 years, right? Where because I bought a lot of stuff, I slowed down my acquisitions and I went into this, I'm paying these suckers off as I get better at building this agent predictable revenue business, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, I lost a window there of time where I could have been buying. But when's the best time to buy a house, right?
Anytime.
20 years ago. When's the second best time to buy it? Like today, right?
Yeah, today.
And you could still make those numbers work. You just have to be vigilant, right? And 100%. So now I'm looking at properties in the outskirts of where we live. We just bought an Airbnb last year on the Shenandoah River. So you just start figuring out, hey, how can I do this in either markets where it does make sense, or in my backyard, maybe an hour or an hour and a half away from where I live, that, it makes sense.
It makes sense. That's a great strategy. And you're so simple and you're clear on what you're looking for. 15% cash on cash return. And then now that could be your new baseline and your filter to evaluate opportunities with. Like, you're not like, oh, I'll buy a good deal. It's like, a good deal to you could be a bad deal for me, depending on what we're looking after. So I really appreciate that tip. That's phenomenal advice, man. So you mentioned something earlier I want to definitely make sure we talk about. So the grid, you had me on your podcast, and that was probably one of the best interviews I've been on a decent amount of podcasts, and just the way you articulated that interview and structured it was awesome. So tell me a little bit about that, man. I know you got some exciting stuff going on in the DMV, and now you're going to scale that nationwide.
It's fun. It's funny because this thing kind of grew organically. It was, I knew that I needed to build a database, right? Yeah. And that the more people that I know in the business, more people would bring me deals. Yeah. Or I could lend money to and do all that stuff. And so I started kind of hosting these masterminds around real estate and real estate investing. And I kind of set a topic. And I remember I asked myself this simple question. I said, if I was a real estate if I wanted to get involved in real estate investing for the first time, what would I need to know first? Now, what would I need to know second? What would I need to know third? And what does the full life cycle of real estate investors' life look like? So that by the end of the year, right, and let's just say we've got 11 topics, 12 topics, we're talking about being the bank, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The goal being the bank. So we start with wholesaling and we end with being the bank, right?
Yeah.
And in between, we've got everything else about it. And what happened is this little group grew from 5 people to 10 to 20 to 50. Before I knew it, I had 100 people in the room. And then people asking me, hey, can you host this in other areas?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, hey, I'm just one guy. I can't.
Yeah.
So I started licensing it out to other people that had been part of my original group.
Yeah.
And who I had taught how to do this business to. And now they were kicking ass.
Yeah.
And they were kind of teachers, natural teachers, and they started building their tribe. And so we've just kind of expanded that concept. And now what we've landed on is a very particular avatar. We know who's super successful running these kind of groups. We keep refining and getting better and better. And it's your agent investor avatar, right? Meaning it's somebody like me who sees real estate from 360, because that group will generate listing deals, buyer deals,
wholesale
investment deals, like everything, right?
Everything.
And what I do is I just pour into people, right? I pour in the people. We like right jab, right hook. Like we give everything to everybody. We tell you want to know how to wholesale, dude, I'll tell you exactly how to do it, right?
Yeah.
And we create what's called social equity, and then people reward us with doing deals. I mean, that's it. We always tell everybody, listen, we're not gurus. We're going to share with you what we're doing at the local level, how we do deals, right? With the sole purpose that hopefully you bring us deals, right? We want to do deals, which is totally transparent, right?
Dude, I love that freaking model, dude. And it's just like, it's like the value in advance model. Like we're going to give it all away. And if you want to do deals with us, great. If not, no sweat. We're all going to get value from this together, man. It's funny you're saying that now, because 2021, dude, one of the best channels I'm getting deals from is for other investors, just networking. I'm either buying them from wholesalers, or we're doing wholesale deals together and they're getting more money with me because my buyer, like it's just the same, rehabbing houses. It's the whole thing, man. Wholetailing. It's the gift that keeps on giving, man. It's just provide value.
Yeah, relationships, and I talk about this all the time, man. Relationships are your best ROI.
100%, dude.
Right? Your best ROI. The knowledge you learn from people, like 100%. The ROI is disgusting, right?
Yeah.
Also, like I've had people that have been on my team 11 years, man, 12 years, that came from this group, right? And you look at like the hundreds of the millions of dollars they've generated in business, right? Yeah. And it started because I just started by being a giver.
Dude. Right. And that's the key. You got to give, provide value, and the rest will take care of itself, man. That's amazing. That's amazing, dude.
So now we just launched. We're about to launch in Scottsdale. We're in Philly. We're in California. We're in Florida. We're in Austin, Texas. We're in a bunch of places here in the DMV area.
Major cities. Yeah.
Yeah, and what we want to do is we want to hit all the major cities, find the right avatar that be part of our tribe of people, refer business to each other, learn from each other, and create, give people the tools and the picks and axes to do the business.
100%, right? Man. 100%. That is exciting, man. Especially you taking it nationwide now. That's just a smart model. And it's just the whole value in advance, do the right thing, have a good thing, and good things will come from it, man. That's so exciting.
You actually said this real fast, right? Like, great book. I read it. You referenced it. Who Not How, right?
Oh, dude.
He says, amazing book, right? Game changer book for me. He says this thing in there that I absolutely love. He says, who do you want to be a hero to?
Oh, I love that.
Ask yourself that question, right?
Yeah.
Who do you want to be a hero to? And like, what resonates for me is the real estate entrepreneur. That's who I want to be a hero to, right? Now, obviously, I run a real estate team. We serve the community. We help people buy and sell real estate. That's what we do, right? But my passion is helping the real estate entrepreneur on this journey that we're all on, right?
Totally.
And it's not like I'm better, than other people. Like I'm just, I'm going to share with you what I know, and I'm going to bring in other people that share what they know, and
100%.
like hopefully you get something from it, right?
100%.
And so that's that's who I want to serve, is the real estate entrepreneur.
I love that. And you're clear on who you can help and who your target person is, that you're very clear on that. I can tell you're a very focused person. I mean, knowing you, from the group and us having some conversations, man, it's awesome stuff. So a couple things to wrap the show up, man. I really appreciate you coming on, man. I could talk to you for freaking hours, man. I can't wait to see you again in person soon. So if people wanted to reach out to your real estate team in DC, what's the best way for them to check you guys out?
Yeah, I mean, they could go to the Caza, CAZA group.com.
Okay.
Right? It means to hunt. The business was to hunt for properties, right? Caza Properties was our roots.
Yeah.
Caza means to hunt in Spanish, right? CAZA. It's also play on words. It sounds like house, right?
Yeah, Caza.
When it's spelled with a Z, it's, to hunt, right?
That's awesome.
So the Caza Group, or they can find me on Instagram, right? Just at Rob Chevez.
At Rob
right?
Chevez.
They can Google me. They'll see me.
What about Grid? How do they find out Grid? What's the best website?
Gridinvestor.com. GRID investor.com.
Gridinvestor.com. So make sure if you're listening, you want to connect with Rob and his companies, the Caza Group, and then gridinvestor.com. I'm sure some people will be taking you up on that, man. And Rob, really appreciate you coming on the show, man. This has just been so much fun. I've learned a lot from this interview, and I'm sure the listeners have done so as well. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, brother. Take care. Be good.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Pave the Way Podcast. We hope you got value from today's episode. Make sure you download Greg's free guide on daily personal productivity for free at www.pavetheday.com. That's Pave the Day spelled DAY.com. If you have any questions or want to reach out, head over to www.pavethewaypodcast.com. We'll see you on the next episode.